I've got all the body parts painted and cleared. I painted the oil tank and the gas tank a couple days ago, so I'm sanding it with 2000 wet or dry. And then I'll show you how I put the decals on. I've got the fenders on the bike. I'm really happy that I went with the gold. It just, to me, it looks so much better than the lime green. I've got some aftermarket turn signals that I've got mounted. I got everything electrical working. I need different stocks for the rear turn signals. The ones I got aren't long enough, so I've got to order the original stocks. I'm going to use these aftermarket turn signals that were inexpensive but look like the ones that were on the early bikes. I tried and tried and tried to find a set of 70, 71 turn signals, and I could find one rear Newell stock for $100. That's all I could find. I have a set of the fronts for 74, 75, and I'll show you, they're not good enough to use. The mounts are all right, but there's just too much pitting and corrosion on the turn signal itself, and I don't really care for them on the handlebars. I think it looks better on the headlights, so that's what I'm going with. I've got a lot of Newell stock parts on the bike I'll go over when it's all finished. So today, yeah, I'm just going to color sand the oil tank and the fuel tank, and then I will show how you put the decals on. If you take your time, and it's pretty easy. And when you color sand, you want to get it until you can't see any orange peel left, and you can feel it when you're sanding. When there's orange peel, you'll feel the grit, and then it'll get smooth when you've got the orange peel off, and then you can wipe it down and you can see where you still need to sand and where it's good enough. And I'm using a flex pad for the same reason. Sanding the primer, you don't want to put finger marks in it. With the pad, it levels it out. So my thought on the spraying the parts, if it was a solid color with, two-part base clear coat, I definitely would say, yeah, you can use spray cans and get a really nice job with metallics or candies. I wouldn't recommend it for a high-end bike. If you're not super nitpicky and fussy, it's probably going to be fine. And from a few feet away, nobody's going to notice. But I said earlier in the video, the problem with the metallics and the pearls is the nozzle in your aerosol can. I've had some aerosol cans where the nozzle's really good and they get a really consistent pan, but in these, I really wasn't happy with the spray pattern. I did the best I could with what I had. I tried my nozzles from the Spray Max 2K. They look the same and they spray the same, but I've seen some spray cans for the high-end stuff that has, you can adjust it. You kind of go 90 degrees and get a different pattern. And if I could find a set of nozzles that would do that, that would fit, that would probably make it better. Because the problem I had is with the candy and with the base coat metallic, because the fan wasn't perfect, you're going to get imperfections on the way the clear laid down and the way the candy, because the candy is, you can just think of it as a bleeder where it's mostly clear and it's got a tint to it. So in the sun, it really shows up. I was editing a video and it turned on. So, yeah, if it's a high-end bike, you're going to have to use a spray gun. And I pretty much decided for the next bike, unless it's just a solid color, I'm going to get a compressor because I have a bunch of spray guns. But as far as motorcycle parts, the 2K spray can is fine because it's the same clear as you can spray in your gun, and you don't have to worry about the pattern as much with candy and with a metallic because it's just clear. And the finished product, it's the same thing. It's a really good catalyze, super hard. A couple days in the sun, it's ready to color sand, put your decals on. You don't want to do it too soon. So what I'll do is I'll get these color sanded and I'll put them out in the sun because I'm opening it up so it can breathe more. And then in a day or two, I will put the decals on and then clean it with soap and water. I really don't like using clean sol or prep sol over decals because it could react to them and ruin them. So I just make sure my hands are clean and I use plenty of soap and water and wipe it down really good and then use a tack rag and it should be fine at that point. So I can tell I've got most of it, and I'm not worried about the back. I didn't go crazy in the back because it doesn't show. I'm only going to be clearing what shows, and that's kind of the way the factory did it too. If you look at bikes that have never been restored. It's starting to look pretty smooth. You really want to make sure you don't have any debris, any dirt or anything in your sandpaper because it'll ruin your paint. It's got to be clean. Taking time sanding around where I've got the sight glass taped off. Yeah, this looks very nice outside in the sun. If you're looking outside and you're a foot away because of the spray pattern, you're going to see some imperfections. But for this bike, which is, I'm going to be taking it in the dirt, I built it to enjoy and ride and play with, so it'll be fine. And it's going to look like a brand new bike, so it'll be good. I do not know if the camera's going to show that it's smooth. And the clear will fill the 2000 grit sand scratches, so you don't have to worry about that. But 2000 seems to be a good coarseness. And the nice thing about color sanding, they clear it again if the final spray of clear goes on clean. You're not even going to have to buff it because it's going to be really, really smooth. I got my tank over here. Looks nice, and I'll color sand that next. So what I did is you pull off the backing, so the decal is on the back side of the see-through top paper, and you get it wet with soap and water, and then you use a decal squeegee to get the water out. You can see, and you just got to be patient, because if you try to pull it up too soon, they could separate. You really don't want one to separate and the other ones don't, and then to try to place one little letter and get it lined up is not easy. In the Air Force, we had to put decals on the B-52s and the KC-135s, and sometimes we could do it in a hangar, but sometimes we had to do it on the flight line. You have to do them dry, but they're perforated with thousands and thousands of holes. And I know the SAC badge, and this was way back in the late 70s, they used to tell it, don't screw it up, because one decal was $600, and we did screw up a couple of them, but most of them we got on. The ones that were really hard were on the tankers. They had a band that went on the fuselage at an angle. If you've seen a KC-135 from the 70s and 80s, you remember that. You know, they were painted a light gray, and they had the Strategic Air Command badge with the, I can't remember the colors of ribbon, and that was a huge, it would take several of us to hold it, because you didn't want part of it to stick when you're still trying to line it up, and that was a real challenge. Yeah, putting it on decals with soap and water is easy, because you can move it around to get it placed where you want it, and then once you're sure you got it where you want it, then you just start carefully getting the water out, and then you just got to wait for it to, you can kind of tell because it'll change color and it won't have wet spots, because right now you can see, see if you can see in the camera, you can see the top, you can see the dark spots, there's still water there. You want it all to look consistent like the white here, and then you know you've got the water out, and then you can carefully peel it off. Yeah, this is the decal from the 70, and I don't care for the black tank with the 350 decal on the 74, and I think I posted on Facebook somebody that did it wasn't a 74, it was an earlier bike because of I could tell by the seat release, it could have been a 70 or 71, but they did it in gold, but they did the old tank gold with this decal on it, and I thought it really looked sharp. You know, since this is my bike, I'll do it the way I want, be happy with it. I really, out of all the paint jobs on the Bighorns from 70 to 75, when that was the last one, the 71 I dislike the most. I don't like the way the graphics look. The 72, 73 with the same lime green, I like the graphics because it's a lot like the H2s that time, and I could live with that, but I just, you know, and I have the 71 graphics set, so I will paint up a 71 body set for this bike, so if and when I decide to sell it, I'll give the buyer an option. Do you want the gold paint job body set or the green? And then I'll just keep the other set unless they want to buy that too. But I always thought that the gold 74 looked the best. I wished I had decided when I was starting to build the motor that I was going to do the gold because I think it looks better with the satin black engine cases. I have two more motors. I'm going to build one more, and I may do that one in satin. I'm leaning toward not building the 75. I just this is the way I always wanted a Bighorn, so I don't really feel the need to build another, so I may just decide to depart everything out and just keep this bike, but I'll decide that after a while. There's no hurry. I'd like to buy another H2, a 72 or 73, and always wanted a purple 73, but they're so expensive now. The last one I sold, super nice, and I think I sold it for $12,500, and I see them on now on eBay. They need total restorations. They want 7 to 10 grand, and I know how much it costs to restore one of those bikes because I've done a couple dozen of them, and by the time you get done, you spend that much for it. You're going to have 25, 30,000 in the bikes, and to me, they're not $25,000 or $30,000 bikes. They're really fun, but I just, you know, to me, they're like toys. They're very rowdy, and maybe in the day they had a lot of power, but compared to today's bike, I mean, 74 horsepower is nothing. I mean, my XR 650 made 60 horsepower and weighed probably 150 pounds less. That bike felt powerful. So. So carefully, because if I see something to start to lift, I will push it down some more, but looks like it's stuck pretty good. You have to be very careful not to scratch the decals before you get clear over it. So, here, looks good. Not stock, but I like it. So looking at my picture on the TV and trying to, because here's where it ends, look at where it rolls over. And when you put the other side on, you can look at the front and the back and make sure they're lined up in the top and just try to get it as close as you can. This one was a little off from the factory. So I can see where the stripe ends, and it ends just about, the black ends right about where the petcock thing is. So I think, and it wants to lay there. If I try to bring it up a little bit, it doesn't want to go. And putting my Kawasaki on and seeing, I got it kind of like that, and I think it looks pretty much like the picture, so I'm going to stick it down. I've seen some tanks that original paint that the stripes are pretty far off compared to other ones. You know, reproduction decals was the Diablo Cycle now, they use 3M backed paper, so their stripes are really nice. You definitely want to use the 3M. It's not worth saving a few bucks and then they're crap. They're not cut right. They don't go on right. I think I mentioned earlier, sometimes you can get what is called waterborne, where it releases in water, and it's like the old decals you would put on the little plastic models when you were a kid, but they're very, very thin, very easy to rip. They don't like to bend, because you could bend this stuff with a heat gun on low setting. This tank's not bad, but there's some tanks that get a lot of contours, and it's, you know, you don't want to get a kink in the decal. You have to kind of convince it to go where you want it. But this is a pretty simple. There's a little bit right here. It wants to fold right in that one spot. The bottom doesn't, the top does. So I just gotta be careful with it. And when you want to stick it, once you get it pretty dry, you can use a heat gun at low heat and stick the corners. See how this wants to fluff up, but we're a long ways from this being dry enough to pull the paper. I got my heat gun on the lowest setting. I'm going to try to stick the edge. What I do on the other side at this point forward, because it's a sharp curve, to get the wrinkles out, I'm keeping this wet. I'm going to pull it, and the white stripes and the black stripes have a clear that's holding them together, so they're not going to separate. And what I did is I pulled it this far, and then had it wet and then put it on without the backing doesn't like to bend as much as the stripe does. So I'm going to keep this wet so it doesn't stick. And I can line the end of the tank up with the other one. Still doesn't want to stick. This side's easier because it doesn't have the petcock. There, it's sticking. And you don't want to pull it out, you want to pull toward it. Get it real close when you pull it so it doesn't tend to lift it. Yeah, you don't want to pull like this, you want to pull when it's close to the tank and slow and watch it. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, see here it's wrinkled. Without the backing on, I can kind of shape the bottom and using my finger. Yeah, you want to put a kink in it. There it goes. Getting good. You just got to take your time. Move it down a little bit. There we go. That's pretty level. It's hard to see, but it's pretty level. Yeah. Okay. The Kawasaki strip is much easier because it's mostly flat. Yeah, I found out on the other side, once I get to this point with the backing on, I couldn't lay it down without kinks, so that's why I stuck it here, kept this wet, and pulled it off. So all the kinks are gone, looking for air bubbles. This side came out very nice. And just stick the corner with a little heat. It doesn't take much. Okay, what I noticed about this tank is I'm looking at the original pictures. The Kawasaki strip is the same on side to side. I believe on the H2s they both lean forward, where on this one the passenger side is leaning toward the back, and then the right side is leaning toward the front. I'll have to check my pictures because I've seen people put them on backwards on the H2, so I think they were more fussy on those and slanted them different left to right. There, it looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm using the block of wood to lift it up so it's easier. Like I said, the Kawasaki strip is much easier, and there's only just one little curve here. And so what I did is I make sure this way the height is the same. I'll look down the top and use my fingers to make sure I've got it kind of symmetrical, and then look at the pictures, and I can see by looking at the original factory decal and paint, the W is kind of lined up with the filler neck. So you just want them to look symmetrical side to side. And what I did is I lined it up with the base of the tank, because if the tank is mounted right, it's kind of, the bottom of the tank's going to be leveled. I've seen some bikes they're not. And 74, 75 has a rubber bushing. I'm looking for it. I don't know where it is. It kind of levels the tank. Oh, I'll find it later. Yeah, these are much easier than the stripe. Yeah, this is the rubber pad that goes on the bottom toward the back of the tank. And when you put this in there, the tank sits level. The 70, 71 had little round ones that were taped on that did the same thing. And what you want to do, this side there's no air bubbles. The right side there's some air bubbles. I can't push them out with my finger. So what I'm going to do before I clear it is put it out in the sun, and a lot of times they'll evaporate and go away. sometimes they won't. And it's funny how I put them on the same way, and this side is absolutely no air bubbles. And they're already starting to, yeah, they're still there. Yeah, so I'll put it out tomorrow in the sun and just keep an eye on it. And, because I know when I put them on cars before, there'll be tons of pinholes, because some of them, like the ones that go over the hood and the deck lid, can be 6 or 8 inches wide. And you put those on the same way with soap and water. And we put on some that's full of pinholes that you just can't get out. Put it out in the sun for a day before it's cleared, and they'll come out. Sometimes not. They got a little part of the W is not sticking. Yeah, this side's still wet. There we go. And that looks level with the bottom of the tank. Okay, gonna do the funnel clear on the gas tank. I did the stripes yesterday. Take my tack cloth and wipe the tank and try not to knock it over. Hey, the first coat over the decal, I try not to put on really wet in case there's some kind of contaminant or everything, and I'm gonna let it flash at least 15 minutes before I put the next coat on it. So if you don't put it on heavy, you know, if there's any fish eyes or stuff, you can maybe get away with it if you let it flash really good. Okay, I've got the clear done. I put 4 coats on the tank. Came out very nice. Looks nice and smooth. I don't think I'll have to color sand it. I finished the oil tank yesterday after I put the decal on. I really like this decal. I think it looks much better than with the 74, the black tank with just the 350 on it. I think it looks pretty sharp. So that should be it for the bodywork and paint videos. Next video show the bike with fenders on. I'll get the oil tank on, and we're getting close to finishing it up. Thanks for watching.